What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Thursday, everybody. Okay, so this morning I was on the Clint Weldon channel on the night shift. We did a live stream with them, and it was really fun. I'm going to leave it in the description so you guys can check it out. But today I scheduled an interview with somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for a while, because the first time I saw him, he was still is part, I think, of a podcast that I followed quite a bit. With Mr. Digby Forneaux as well. And I just want you guys to welcome Mr. Thompson to the show. Welcome, Tom. How you doing?
What's up, man? This is like super overdue, right?
Yeah.
Like we should have been done this a long time ago. Digby said hello. I talked to him on the phone quite a bit earlier today. Again, the podcast is coming back. Like we are going to be doing the podcast. There was just a lot of personal stuff that needed his attention, but things are starting to settle down now. And I'll just drop this information now. He has it's not UFO related, but it's something that he and I are both very passionate about. And being that he lives in the UK, he is it's his video though, but I really want like people to go watch it when it's done. It's going to be about this whole idea of having citizens require digital ID. Right. This is something that's happening in the UK pretty prominently. He and I both have very strong feelings about that. And he is putting together probably, like, I would say it's his best work. Like his thumbnail is absolutely out of this world. Like it's phenomenal. He really has put his heart and soul into it. So when it's out, I would definitely recommend everybody see it, because it's a topic that affects everybody. And people really need to pay attention to this, because it's not just going to start and stay in the UK. This is something that the powers that be absolutely want across the board, from Europe to the United States to China, everywhere. It's going to affect a lot of people, and it's uncomfortable because it's another facet of control over regular people that should not be there. Yeah.
It gets difficult when it comes to political kind of commentary on that type of stuff, because there's a lot of divide, and especially when it comes to the philosophy overall and the fundamental ideas. But I do understand. I have a lot of friends that think the same way, and I do respect their opinion on it. And it would be scary, man. It's like dystopia, straight up.
It's Orwellian,
Yeah.
George Orwell was very ahead of his time, and I think some of that stuff now, those philosophies sort of get lumped into the modern memes of like, oh, Alex Jones and frogs and all of these things. But if you take a step back, this is not political, actually. It has political undertones because that's, it's politicians who are handling these things. However, to me, it has to do purely with humanity. It has to do with rights. Like
Human
freedom
rights.
of speech. It just, you know what I mean? Like I'm a massive proponent of freedom of speech with responsibility. Like, I don't think you should be able to just, there's certain things where it's like, you got to watch your mouth, right? Like, that's just how I was raised. But if you want to go in a space, a controlled space, like have your own Medium or Substack or anything, and say whatever you want, I have to support it even if I don't agree with it. And that's kind of the power of that, is that's how ideas are shared and people come to conclusions. This is something that Democrats and Republicans need to do more of, is converse with one another and have conversations. Yeah. That's why it's so important. But this is a big deal, though. This is something that could give them a lot more power than they should have. They already have too much. We don't need to give them any more.
And it gets difficult there to manage how to coexist with different philosophies, because essentially what we should do is not have any patience for the for totalitarian ideas, basically.
No, it's scary. We don't need that. The idea of a utopia, like, it doesn't work the way the world is designed right now.
I don't think either communism or capitalism, for that matter, exists. They're like perverse versions of them, but they don't. That's really
interesting
on paper.
You're right. You're actually right about that in a way. That's like it's like neo-capitalism. I don't know. I'm no economic expert, but I know what I think would work. But there are still certain things that would have to happen on this planet for them to work, and we are not anywhere near that yet. It's just there's too much archaic ideology. The Middle East is still fighting with itself, and and I don't take sides in that conversation. My side is I wish people would stop hurting each other. That's it. That's all I have to say about that, and that's all I'm ever going to say.
Same. Yeah, same. I wanted to ask you though, because things seem to be getting weirder. And when I first came into this space and started investigating it, I had a very basic idea of what I thought was happening. I was like, so probably there are ETs. They come from a different planet. And within 2 years, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So, and it's way weirder than I thought. And I've always seen that you seem to be more connected or plugged into what might be potentially happening, like at least a part of it. So I know it's really loaded question, but in like general terms, what do you think is real and what do you think isn't out of everything that's being talked about?
All right, so it's really funny because when I was just driving home from work, I was thinking about what I thought you were going to ask me, and this was the one thing I thought you were going to ask me. I swear to God, I was like, I know exactly how I'm going to word this, because it's now it's a longer duration, but it's still representative of the same evolution that you've experienced internally with yourself. I have had experiences. I've been very public about that, but even in the midst of that, when I was a kid, even after the triangle incident, I still, for many years, thought I was dealing with extraterrestrials that were coming from another planet, and then here comes the internet. And I'm like, oh, maybe they're from Zeta Reticuli, right? Like, because that gets put out there. And that still may be true. I don't know. I have no idea. However, now I'm 36. Okay. My birthday was just a few days ago. I'm older now.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That's a scary 36. I was like, ugh. I had like a weird moment of like, oh shit, I'm aging and I can't stop it. I think all right, I'll lay this out. So I think one of the reasons that this whole topic is so confusing is because we have good data to suggest a lot of different things, right? We have data that suggests that we're being visited by extraterrestrials, but we also have data to suggest that we're dealing with something maybe more elemental, something a little bit more on the trickster side, something closer to home, like an ultra-terrestrial type idea. There's a lot on the table. Like, one of the things that I actually really thought about this week was like, what if it's one thing that just pretends to be a lot of different things? And it's like, well, why would it do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons why it could or would, and that's loaded. But out of everything, just based on all of the reports, my own experiences, everything, I lean in the direction that some of this is absolutely interdimensional. Like, and when I say interdimensional too, and this is very recent, this is, I was at work, I'm in the back vacuuming, and I have these moments where I just have like a thought, and I'm like, all right, I got to write that down. So I stopped vacuuming, I pulled out my phone, I take out my little Samsung notes, and I'm like, well, what if they're not coming from a natural dimension, right? Like, our third dimension appears to exist, at least in our minds, naturally, right? Like, we're here, we're born here, and we don't know where it came from, but we think it was like the Big Bang. But what if they are coming from like post-natural dimensions where it's like they're able to go and design their own dimension, essentially? They're able to create an artificial dimensional substrate that's like non-Euclidean, right? Because people have talked about seeing a craft yay big and then being brought into it, and all of a sudden it's like the size of a stadium. That's non-Euclidean geometry. Like, you're warping space, you're warping time. It's probably gravitational. I think that these things are dealing in dimensions and in time. And the more I dig into this too, is I'm beginning to notice that there's a lot of hush hush around time for whatever reason.
I was
On
gonna
the
ask you about that, bro.
intelligence side of this, like the intelligence community, they really don't want people talking or learning about the true nature of time. I don't know what that is. I have my own ideas. There's a lot of brilliant people on X that I've spoken to that have their own ideas about time. But one of the theories that I have, and I'm going to flesh out, is like we have all these different beings, and there's a lot of different options on the table there. But out of everything, like the one morphology that I'm like, I am. This is the one that exists, are the Greys. Like out of everybody, Nordics, reptilians, whatever, the Greys. I'm like, those are the ones. Like those are real. And I was reading through the work of a man named Nigel Kerner, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. He was a brilliant writer, and he wrote a couple of really solid books about the Greys that inspired a lot of my own work. I think, and I'm going to flesh this out, but I think it's possible that whatever the Greys are like working for is not from here, not from this reality at all, and that maybe because the Greys appear to be autonomous to some degree, they seem very cold and mechanical. They are the equivalent of like us sending a rover to Mars. Like we send our probe out, it's exploring, it's taking pictures, but this is something much more complicated. Whatever sending it here can't get here for whatever reason, but it has the power to design a technology, the Greys, and they send that here. And again, that's one idea that's on the table. The hybridization. Listen, for those that are going to listen to this, there aren't too many things that I'm like certain about, but I am very certain about the hybridization program, and I am very certain about the Greys. Like those are the two things.
What makes you say that about the hybridization program? Because
there's so much. Like if you go reading through the literature, there is a plethora of different reports of women having like false pregnancies, women that fell pregnant that were virgins, that weren't sexually active at the time. Like these types of things aren't supposed to happen, but they were reported over and over and over and over. And I mean, I have spoken to women who have had like their medical files disappear. They are doing something to us. There is like, I am so certain of that. I just recently came across like a repository of 20 years worth of abductee markings, like images of markings. Oh God, I'm going to say it, but I may as well say it. I've talked about this before, but it's very uncomfortable for me because I don't declare myself an abductee because there's too many pieces missing. But I have, on the insides of my thighs, I have these very strange markings that they look like biopsies. I have never had a biopsy done, and those types of things can occur naturally as the result of a couple different things, and I have had none of those things. Like they would need to come first, and then it could leave a mark like that. And I'm going through these images on this website, and I came across this one picture, and I mean, it looks exactly like what is on the inside of my leg. Exactly like it. And it's just, there's too many stories. There's too many consistencies. You know, John Mack and some of these other, and Greg Carla Turner, and like they've done a lot of the work already. People just have to take the time to go back and look at what they did. There is a consistent pattern across time. And what I'm actually noticing is that whatever they were doing seems to now be either slowing down or shifting into a different phase. If this was actually just the result of people creating things in their mind across the board, you know, some sort of weird subconscious construct that everybody like immediately jumps to. It's like, oh, we're all just going to magically imagine these beings with these big eyes and bald heads. We're just all going to do that, even though we all have different brains. If that was the case, you wouldn't see as much consistency, and it wouldn't look like a literal operation going on where it seems to come and go through history. But when you go back into the 40s and into the 50s and the 60s, it skyrockets how many people are having these types of experiences. And then it tapers off, and they're having and receiving shared messages from these beings like, oh, there's a time of change coming. These people a lot of these people have never spoken to one another before. So if this is like a hallucination or a dream or something that their own brain concocted, then why are all of these people coming up with the same things ad nauseum? It's like so obvious to me that something has occurred. And John Mack, right? A man more brilliant than three of me. And he was convinced. I mean, that guy was just an unbelievable brain. He was convinced. He was absolutely convinced. But yet the debunkers want me to believe that the children in Zimbabwe that at the Ariel school saw a school bus with puppets and like African Americans and all these weird, like this really odd combination of things. It's like they saw the craft and they saw the beings and they saw the beings floating and they got downloads from them. But you want me to think it was a puppet show on wheels?
Yeah, and there are other events too, like the Virginia case is really compelling.
Solid, super solid.
The Colares case also, which happened in the 70s. I wanted to ask you about that though, because you just made a tweet about the difficult conversation, which is abductions, and we're talking about them. But there's a really old interview of Thinking Aloud with Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove with Jacques Vallée, where Jacques Vallée talks about the abduction phenomenon, but at that time, he seemed to think that it was a government sanctioned operation. And now he seems to have changed his mind over time. Why do you think that was?
Well, you would have to assume that Jacques has probably had access to data and resources that we don't, unfortunately. And I mean, he's totally deserving of that, as he should be. And over time, he saw patterns that weren't there before, right? Like now that AI is here, right? That's a good example. I would imagine someone close to him was like, hey, let's take some of this and let's run it through ChatGPT, right? Like that's what I did with everything that was going on with these drone incursions. I took a map of all of the incursions just in the continental United States. I fed it into ChatGPT and I said, do you see anything? Are there any patterns here that maybe I wouldn't initially pick up on just by staring at a map? And it's like, oh yeah, these are swarming around data centers. I'm like, oh my God, well, look at that. So I think now Jacques has proposed a couple different things with abduction too, because he's spoken about physical abductions, but he's also spoken about astral abductions too. And that's where it gets like really tricky.
He actually went through one of those, right? He explained
I believe so. Yeah. Something of that
sort. With Ryan Sprague, I'm sorry, Ryan. I think he talked about that. He had an OBE and he saw a shadow being. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, I think he's, as the data has come out, and with all the people he's probably spoken to, I would imagine, he had what he had back in the day, developed like a hypothesis around it, but then as more information came in, and the pieces started falling apart. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by this whole thing, is that I have no real good definitive answer that is like a be-all, end-all umbrella to cover everything. And there again, I retweeted this just this week because somebody shared the clip. But the week that Digby and I interviewed Gary Nolan, he said something that I can still hear in my head. And I think it is literally one of the most important sentences that anyone has ever uttered in the history of ufology. And I am so serious when I say, you could say what you want about Gary. We're talking about the phrase. Like, he said that the data suggests strongly that whatever's going on doesn't conform to a single command structure, that there are multiple intelligences going on. And I'm like, well, that's powerful information, because that is exactly what all of this looks like. That's one of the things I'm working on now too, is that, you know, if you go on just Pinterest, right, and search like UFO humanoid encounters, you'll find all of these drawings and renditions of all of these different things that have happened throughout time. And some of them really look wacky. Like, okay, here's some elves. These things look like bats. Look at the like the Pascagoula, and like all of these weird morphologies. And I'm like, why are they, why so many beings? Is it literally like different species? I think in certain regards, yes. I think there are multiple intelligences, species, whatever you would call them. But I think there's a lot of trickery that they're employing. And I think if they're able to alter your perception and they're able to make you see something, chances are you didn't see their true form. They were there, but when they looked like a garden gnome or like a talking tree or something like that, like my brain wants to say, yeah, that was a gray messing with your mind. Like that's one of the things that I think about a lot, is like they probably did something technologically where they were able to go into your brain and like pick out a cartoon or something. And it's like, oh shit, I just ran into like seven Mickey Mouses. Like why are there talking mice out here in the woods? Like, and if it's funny because if you go watch Taken from Steven Spielberg, there's like that theme running through there. People seeing like the owls and all that, the screen memories. I don't think that there are literal garden gnome looking beings running around. I think that was a facade being used by something. But when we get down to like the brass tacks of it and we get to the core of it, I don't think it's like, 90 to 100 different species visiting us. I think it's a smaller number, but it looks like more, and because they do what they do. And I'm sure I'd have to really flesh that out as to why. And that's what I'm doing with this, like this other project that I'm doing. It's like, why so many faces? Like this is a fractured mirror. Why all these different humanoids and why all these different like morphologies and it seems like there's all these different species. And I don't think the answer is like, oh, those are all just different aliens. Yeah, I think it's something a little bit more complex that involves perception.
And if we go back in history though, because I wanted to ask you about this, the whole religious aspect of the phenomenon. We seem to have been interacting with something for millennia now. And back then, there was this interpretation, and the Abrahamic religions were created. Basically, it's out of the tale of the Sumerian gods, basically. That's how I interpret it. But why do you think this interpretation has persisted for so long, and what do you think can be done to make people understand that maybe we need a more default mode to see these things? Because I think, and this is just a personal opinion, I think that religious dogma plays a huge part in this, and it clouds perception too. So what do you think can happen or should happen in order for this to not be so dogmatic when it comes to trying to explain what it is?
Well, I would have to, and again, it's no disrespect to anybody's belief system at all. Okay, it's like anyone's relationship with God is their own, and nobody can tell them otherwise. But if we're talking about the text, we're talking about the organized religion, not the spiritual aspect of it. I'm a very spiritual person at this point in my life. I am not religious in any way, shape, or form, and I was raised Catholic. I want people to understand that every religious text, every major religious text on this planet talks about human beings interacting with forces larger than themselves that are not human. Every single one of them. You can call them aliens. You can call them angels. You can call them demons. These are these are right. Exactly. These are forces that have obviously been a part of nature that we don't understand, but they're here, and there's nothing we can do about that. But I want people to also try to open up their minds a little bit and take a little bit of a leap and think about what I'm about to say. Have you ever considered the idea that your religion exists because of our interactions with those beings? Like, if you were a nomad in the desert, like you're Moses, any of these names that you can pull from any of these books, you have no television, you have no electricity, no running water. Like, we're 2,000 to 1,500 years ago. This is a long time ago. So no industrial revolution, none of that. You are wandering the desert, with a goat and some cloth, right? And like, you are very much living in a desolate world that is not filled with skyscrapers and satellites and things of all this. None of it would be there. My desk wouldn't be here. This light, nothing. And all of a sudden, something comes down out of the sky and starts talking to you. Like, that's God, right? Like, what else? Like, at that time, you would immediately assume that to be God. And that's controversial, because then I always have had to wonder. I'm like, all right, is it possible that on average, what human beings believe to be God in nature, if they believe in God, is that the phenomenon? Like, are the phenomenon and God the same thing? And we just but because we don't understand what we're talking about, we think they're two separate things. I've really wondered about that. Like the Greys, the phenomena, all these beings. It's like, are they just like the gardeners of the consciousness field down here? Like, are they just tending to the crops? I've really wondered about that. Like, is this some grand experiment, and then they come down and they tinker with it? Like, that's another thing that I've had in my mind. People, I think what people need to understand, and it'll help tone down the dogmatic perspective, is realize, like, if you take the Bible and you read it through modern eyes, there are so many different instances where a human being interacts with a supernatural force. Is it really a leap at that point to think, oh, well, maybe that was an interdimensional being, or a being that landed on Earth from another planet? That's not a leap at all. It's like, it's all in the same realm of coming from outside of the Earth, and your religion may exist as a result of that. Because, I mean, think about it now too. How many people have had a really powerful experience with the phenomenon, and it kind of drove them nuts a little bit, right? Like, that does happen. Like the Raelian Society, right? Like the French gentleman, he has like a contact experience, which may very well have occurred, but then he starts dressing in like silver and starts talking, about hybrids and so, like, as if he's met them and knows them, and he's got all these women walking around with them. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, that's culty, right? But religion may exist because of the phenomenon. Like, that, it may literally be like I look at it as like a side effect of the phenomenon. I really do. I think, and if you go into the Indian texts, especially too, because that's what I've been doing lately, you will find
blue beings.
Not even just that, though. You will find things that will shock you. Like, when you read it through a modern interpretation, like everything from transmedium vehicles to bilocation to like remote viewing, artificial wombs, DNA manipulation, hybridization, it's all in those books. I swear to God. I have a list of like 60 different terms. I did a bunch of work this one night, and I'm like, I wonder how much is really in here. Everything from UFOs to like the hitchhiker effect. It's all in those books, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe it, because I've always known about the Vimana and these ancient wars that seem to happen, and like the possibility of ancient nuclear war on this planet, but I didn't realize how deep it actually went. And when I got to that point, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, this book really talks about things that now would be in like the encyclopedia of phenomenology. Like it's all in there. Like it really like took my breath away when I saw it. I'm gonna flesh it out. I'm gonna do like probably like it can't be one video. It's gonna have to be like a series of videos that I'll probably have to do with Digby. You won't believe it. I swear to God. And there's other there's it's not just those books though either. If you really go looking, it's across the planet. Like talk of reptilian type beings and all of these. Like I'm like, well, why would they be talking about this? Like because back then, yes, there was storytelling and things, but not like there is now. Like storytelling is prominent, but back then, most of the written work was recording events in history. And that's exactly what they were talking about, is what we would call UFOs and beings, like literally
and now in the modern days, we think it's just myth when they probably weren't documenting myths. Some of the stuff might have happened.
I believe that. I really believe that now. I mean, it just, yes, there are some myths, right? But then, now that we're so far down the road, you got to look at the context in which they were writing it. You have to look at how important it was to their culture, their oral tradition, like Native American traditions, right? Like the Hopi are a really good example. They're pretty literal about it. They're like, yeah, the sky people came down, gave us wisdom, and left. Like, why should we not take them at their word with that when it's something that has been passed down through their oral tradition for a millennia now? Like, we should probably listen to what they're saying. They all say that. I've been on a reservation before and have spoken to someone. I was invited onto a reservation, like, I think it was like a year and a half ago. Someone that found my YouTube channel, strangely. And I had a full-blown conversation with an individual that, it was a private conversation, but it was good. And this is a strongly held belief in probably most Native American traditions, at least in North America. Most of the Native American tribes had some kind of interaction with something like that, goes way back, and they passed it down through history, and they still talk about it, like the Hopi with the Kachina, and they like that dance that they developed. Like, that is literally like an homage to these beings that came down and spoke to them. Like, they literally created an entire ceremony around it. Like, if it was made up, why go through all that trouble when back then storytelling wasn't really like as prominent? Like, it was meant to, it was really meant to celebrate a moment. It was like 4th of July. It was like Halloween. It was a holiday, an important moment for them because of something that occurred that they saw with their own eyes. That's what I think.
Watching all of this, though, unfold, it makes you think about John Keel, right? Because you recently shared a really interesting
that you talked about.
That I talked about, that about his personal interpretations and beliefs of what's going on. I had never seen him write in such fashion, and I've read 3 of his books already. What do you think about that? Do you see it as dark as he saw it, or do you think maybe it's not that exactly? What's your take on that? Because Keel is like the father of ufology, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think. I think he's probably right about a lot, and people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to but you have to realize, like, nature is made up of opposing forces. Like, there's good, there's bad, there's light, there's dark, there's positive, there's negative. I think that the items that were dark, I think were probably fairly accurate. When I read through that document, it kind of felt like I was reading something that I wrote in a lot of ways. And again, I have my own versions and ideas, like the super spectrum. I've like fleshed that out a little differently than he has, and I've brought things into it like temporal folds in space-time that maybe like beings could hide in, and not just the light spectrum. But the light spectrum is important because people hear like, oh, we only see a tiny little bit. It's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand how tiny that is. And John Keel was, I believe, really onto something with that. If you take real world measurements, if you take a ruler and you lay out an inch, that is everything that we see with our eyes, everything. And then take another ruler, well, in this case, a tape measure, because it's going to need to flex, and you're going to stretch it all the way around the circumference of the Earth. And that's the rest of the electromagnetic spectrum that we do not see. Like right there, that should tell you we have absolutely no clue of what we're talking about. That's always been one of the underpinning mantras after reading Keel, after reading Valet, all of these really amazing minds. I'm like, we don't know what we don't know. And what we do know isn't much. It's not. And we need to humble ourselves on that. We have too much ego involved here where we think, well, we discovered this. So what? You're supposed to stop there? We didn't do that when we did, Einstein predicted gravity waves with math. I mean, but we haven't been here that long. We're still going into space using combustion and fuel. Like, we really we need to take a step back and smack ourselves on the wrist a little bit and really start to open up our minds, because that's the other part of this. I think if you take everything that he wrote in that paper and look at it from like a macro view, it kind of lines up with something. I did a video on this concept, and I called the video Etheria. And the whole premise of it was that I think, as good as the scientific method is that we are beginning to now realize that we're encountering things in nature that the scientific method isn't going to help us with in the way that we think it might. Like, if you're dealing with something that can manage your perception, that's coming in and out of dimensions, it can alter space, it can alter time. What, you expect to put that in a bottle and then go measure it? This isn't, it's not going to work that way. We need to be a little bit more creative in our thinking and the way that we attack investigating this. We have to be open-minded, or we're never going to get anywhere. If you just think like, oh, well, they have to be from Zeta Reticuli, they must all be gray, they must all have large eyes, and they must all be flying around in silver pewter colored flying saucers, you have already lost the game. It's over. You're done. You need to open up your head a little bit and be like, oh, you know what? Maybe they did come and give that guy a pancake or a potato pancake, whatever it was. You know what I'm talking about? That weird case, or that the beings gave that gentleman like a weird piece of food. It's weird. You go reading through the literature, and it's weird as hell.
Or maybe he did have sex with that Nordic chick.
Right. It's like, maybe that really did. I know. And it sounds crazy. It does. I get it. I'm a grounded person. I am. But the further I go with this, the more I'm like, damn, like maybe it really is that crazy. Like, I remember being a kid, and I remember specifically being in the grocery store, and they had the Weekly World News, where I was like, oh, Bill Clinton had a baby with an octopus, or, all those weird shit that they used to put on the cover of these newspapers. And I remember they covered the Varginha thing. They actually covered it on there. So I thought it was BS, because that magazine was BS. And then years go by, and I'm like, no, that's a real case. Okay. And then James Fox comes out with this documentary, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is solid. Like, I absolutely believe that happened. Absolutely believe the witnesses. There was a being, there was a ship, the whole nine. The evidence points in that direction. I don't think it was just some weird, like, I don't know. They said it was some homeless guy with like a deformity. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's yes. So I was like, so what was he flying around in then? Why did the bacteria that he was carrying kill somebody? Why couldn't they get the smell out of the hospital? Like, no human being smells bad enough to do that. Like, that's not real. And the girls, when you have one witness, you can say whatever you want, right? But when you have that many witnesses, and then you have people that were in the government, that were police, they knew about the plane that came from the United States to come pick it up. Like, all those pieces fit together really nicely. And I think it happened. I definitely think it happened.
Funny enough, they were tridactyl too.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? That's weird.
It is.
Now, I got to ask you about that. Like, where's your head at with that? Because Digby and I spoke to some people that were very, very close to these specimen, and we're in the room with them. We're part of the team that were studying them, and there's a lot of misinformation with that, unfortunately. So, like, I'm curious, like, where is your head at with those bodies?
Well, the little ones seem to be, to me, ancient reconstructions that seem to have been to pay some sort of homage to the larger bodies, because the larger bodies, I've done my fair share of talking to anthropologists who handle the bodies and all that, and I haven't found one of them who tells me those are not morphologically coherent in the hands and feet. So for me, I think that that may be just like a more evolved species that was here before the Younger Dryas period, and they went underground. And but I do think they're from here. I do think they're from here. I just don't
That's
think they're part of this civilization. You know, that they're part of probably a distant one before that ice age. That's what I think.
So you seem to. So then you seem to realize what I didn't for a while, which was there are hoaxed bodies. Well, I knew that. Like, some of them were obviously like, oh, come on, what is this? But what people weren't realizing, and I don't know if it's because the news stories started off in one language and were being translated into another and things got lost in translation, but the gentleman that we spoke to, him and his father, they're like, yeah, we know that there have been hoaxes. There have been bodies. And he's like, but this one. He's like, that's not what these are. Like, these ones are not constructed with ostrich bones and all these weird animal parts. But not only that, there's a lot more of them than people realize. There's like 45 of them.
And it's a tunnel system where they found them. They didn't find them in a cave. It's a tunnel system.
It's a tunnel system, right? So you got grave robbers, you have the representatives from like the cultural societies in the country that are coming and trying to snatch the bodies up. Some of them seem to be some sort of real being. Now, I would say that it's probably likely, like what you're saying, that it was like some other hominid. But then that really begs the question: were they here as the result of some tinkering, just like I think we are here? Like, do you know Bruce Fenton?
Yeah. I know his theory. Yeah. I know his theory.
I think he's right. I think he's definitely right.
Get this, though. I've been speaking to Dr. Celestino Piotti, who's an Argentinian anthropologist who has handled them personally, and he's a specialist in craniometry. And he was one of the people who testified at the Mexican hearings. And he said verbatim, he was like, these beings are descendants of humans. I'm like, what? And he said it like in Congress. He said that the very first time I heard him.
Of humans.
Yes. And when he said that, I asked Ross Coulthard about it when I was friendlier with Ross, because right now he's like on his own. Basically.
Flying solo.
And Ross like didn't really like the question, like how I phrased it, because I was like,
right,
what do you think about Piotti saying this, that essentially these are like future humans? That's what he's saying. And he was like, that's irresponsible. He needs to present evidence when he makes claims like that. And I'm like, yeah, he does. I hadn't spoken to him by then. I've done like 6 interviews with the guy. He explained everything to me. It really makes sense. And it really coincides with a lot of what Dr. Michael Masters talks about in his work. Coincidentally, Masters wants to be away from the case, like the furthest he can, because he just doesn't want to deal with it. And I get it. He's been harassed quite a bit about it.
Yeah, which is
But
crazy.
think about that though. When I was talking to Piotr in one of the interviews, he told me, he was like, what really puzzles me about this is that the place where they found these, you got some that are carbon dated 700 years ago, some that are carbon dated 1700 years ago. The hands are carbon dated 6,000 years ago. Who is putting those bodies throughout history in the same place? How is that happening? And I'm like, good question.
Oh
What
my
the fuck?
God.
Yeah,
That's weird.
That's real. Yeah.
Now, all right. So I know that carbon dating can be a little weird sometimes.
Yeah, it can.
So I'm sure they work that out, because you can actually get like a reading from that says it's actually from the future. It's weird. Like there's weird things that can happen with the machines. So I'm sure, as brilliant as these people are, they've already worked that out.
By the way,
I would imagine.
Piotr doesn't tell me that these are from the future based on carbon dating. I told you he's a specialist in craniometry because that's how he measures the angles, and he knows when he's looking or measuring an Australopithecus, he knows it's an Australopithecus.
So
based on the angles.
so what he sees here is what he would expect us to evolve into.
Yeah, based on the angles of the cranium, because the craniums that he measured are way off in the future, basically, compared to others.
That's creepy.
Yeah, and when he was gonna testify, he said, he was like, when I was about to testify, I did the measurements again just to know that I'm not crazy, and they matched every single time. So that's what made me confident to just go in there and just say it.
So then that would have to, beg the question. And I've read a lot of what Michael Masters has put out. I've interviewed him. Brilliant guy, really brilliant guy.
Great sense of humor too.
Yeah, that too. He's definitely funny. There is some sort of like temporal aspect to this, and then I've also heard these weird comments. You'll hear them every now and then from certain people where it's like, if everybody got disclosure tomorrow, we would be asking, what does it really mean to be human? And it's like, are we like our planet right now, and maybe even the surrounding like solar system, is this like some weird like temporal like intersection where like, oh, some of the beings that are visiting us are us in the future from one timeline, but then over here it's sort of us from the future, but they've also like done some things to themselves, and now they're sort of a different species, but it's also from another point. Like it's like, how weird and complicated does this get? We're being visited by ETs and time travelers and time traveling ETs and time traveling humans, sort of. Like that's why this is so confusing. It's like, because people want like a be all end all answer. It's like, what's visiting us? Are they aliens or what? It's like, well, yeah, maybe sometimes, but
it's not that easy
all the time. Right. It's not that easy. But I think that's what draws me into this so deeply. But I also suspect too that there are probably some answers to some of these questions that are far more complicated than you and I could probably even conceive of right now in this conversation. Like, they're not coming from another dimension, and they're not coming from Earth, and they're not from space. Like, they're coming from something that we have like no name for yet. Like, I think that's part of this. I really do. I think there's some undiscovered layer to this that we actually haven't even conceptualized yet. So that's one of my suspicions.
Based on what you're saying right now, because let's face it, the vast majority of people in the world are not paying attention to this still. Let's face it, right? So based on that, and based on the whole control disclosure movement, that right now it seems to be like on a low moment right now.
I would agree.
Do you think that maybe one of the reasons they're not being so forthcoming about what this is, the ones who know, do you think it has to do with us, or those people who are not paying attention not being able to handle it as maybe we that have been a little bit more exposed to it have?
That's got to be part of it. I mean, to an extent. Now, I feel like that would have been a more prominent answer back in the 40s and 50s, right? Now, I think there's probably some minds attached to this, human minds that really fear like the actual impact, and because it's an unknown. But I also feel like there are some of them who that's like a convenient excuse as well. Like, because I feel like you can, like David Grush talked about this, like you can have a controlled disclosure where you don't have to literally lay everything out on the table all at once. It's like nuclear weapons. I know what they do. I've seen videos of them. I have seen how they've affected people, sadly. I see in the news that, you know, this country or our country has built a new weapon that can carry them. I know what they're shaped like. I can't go build one. I don't have the schematics for that. I don't have the ability to go to Home Depot and, you know, pick up a pound of uranium. I can't do that. So,
and you don't have a Q clearance either.
I don't have any type of clearance at all. So I would not be allowed to do that in the least bit. You can give us the basics. I really do think that the majority of people now can handle the basics, but I feel like the gatekeepers, either A, some of them use it as an excuse because it's convenient and it's been around since the beginning of all of this, but B, some of them probably really worry about that. And then of course there's also the root of all evil too, right? It has to be accounted for, though. You have to account for people's reactions. You do. But I think what they're worried about isn't like the effect of telling people, oh, hey, we're being visited by a non-human intelligence. They're real. We know they're real. We lied to you. It's like all of the other little things that connect to it, like person that was murdered over here, you know, Amy Eskridge, like that type of situation where it's very, very sus. And then how the money, the taxpayer money, how many billions and trillions of dollars have probably been essentially stolen, not only from the American people, but actually from the United States government as well, to fund these hyper black, you know, unacknowledged special access programs that had no congressional oversight or anything. Like, they essentially act as their own country, their own government, and their own military. And that's why I actually lean in the direction of believing, like, Mr. Herrera. I've spoken to him too. He's a really, really nice guy. And I'm like, you know, this is believable that there's like this rogue military operation running around that kind of just does what it does. And they're using like hyper advanced reverse engineered black tech. I think we've gotten to a point with some of it, but I don't think we've mastered half the shit that we've been looking at.
We sort of kind of mimic them, right? And with our own means, right?
Yeah, with our own materials, exactly that. Yeah, and yeah, I'm open about that. I know it's not always popular. I believe Bob Lazar. I do. I really do, for a lot of different reasons. Aside from like my gut, like I don't care if he ran a brothel. That has nothing. That's not evidence against what he talks about. And then I listened to, I'm really good friends at this point with Jason Sands. It's like, I know his story sounds wild. I totally get it, but it's like, I have stared into this guy's eyes. Right? Like, there's something there, man. Like, I believe him because I've had the time to not only listen to his story, but to just talk to him like just like a regular dude to dude. Like, that's part of it. And I think I think there might really actually be like under 100 people that really know everything. Like, it might really be like a very small consortium, and they almost treat it like a royal family. You know, like, oh, this is the crest. This is some secret like bloodline thing. And you know what? You got to take that into consideration. Dylan Borland talked about that. I think Matthew Brown has hinted at that. And what's weird too, and I bring this up sometimes because I don't want people to forget it, but I made a video a while back called The Fears of the Secret Keepers. And in that video, I had information that was given to me from my own private source. They're not on Twitter. They're not. If they are, I don't know. Like, they would because they're hiding behind like a sock puppet account. I have no idea. I don't even really know if their name is what their name was told to be. And there was stuff in that video that came directly from this individual. And then here comes Matthew Brown, and he's talking about some of it. And then here comes Dylan Borland, and he's talking about some of it. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, this guy's legit. And he's never steered me wrong, has never said, oh, hey, keep an eye out this week for this, and then nothing happens. Like, whoever they are, they're plugged in. And it's literally to the point where I'm like, yo, was that Matthew Brown? Was that Dylan Borland? Like, I don't think it's them now, but it feels like it's someone that knows both of them. Like I remember being on the phone with this individual, and they're like, "What do you know about Enochian magic?" And I'm like, "Not much." And then we're talking about that. Like he literally told me like that there were weird, ancient, because they were being utilized, I guess, thousands of years ago. There's these weird ways of contacting and connecting with some of these forces that were known to some people for whatever reason, and the strange sect of military that knows about this, like they're trying to recreate some of that to get into because it sounds like something out of like Stargate. It's just something nuts. And I'm like, I was like, all right, I'll put this in the video. I don't know, it's really creepy. It almost sounds like bullshit, but this person has been right this entire time. And then Matthew Brown started, I was like, son of Abra. I was like, oh shit. I was like, he knows. Like there's a weird aspect to this that has something to do with the occult in some capacity, some secret knowledge that a small group of people have. Like, you should probably go read some of Peter Levenda's stuff and give Tom DeLonge his due, man. Like, I know some people are like, oh, fuck to the stars. But I think I understand what he was trying to do with that. I think he was literally trying to put truth out through fiction, through media, because it's what people pay attention to. People have low attention spans now. So it's like, oh, what better way to get this information out to people than let's make it into a movie that they'll actually sit down and watch. Because if we put it in a book, I don't know how many people are going to read it. We can triple that number if we make it something animated or CGI or something fun. I think that's what they were trying to do. But yeah, there's some aspect of this that is dark as hell and creepy as hell. And I think whoever these people are that are plugged into this on the human side of things, I think they are playing with fire in certain regards. And I actually thought you were going to ask this, but I'm going to throw it in because it piggybacks off of what you were saying. It's like, well, what are they afraid of? How come we can't get disclosure? Like, we're in a low period right now. What's the holdup? And the more and more I go about my day and I think and I read and I listen, I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that it's all human that's keeping this down. I think because I've heard it too many times. And it's always the same two things: infiltration and walking among us. Infiltration, walking among us.
And we seem to be some kind of a farm or something like that.
Yeah. So like a resource, right? That's no fun. Yeah. No, I think it came up too many times in too many conversations with people that I don't think were necessarily talking to each other. That really creeped me out. Like, I will say too, I don't know if I can say this. I'm not sure if he's okay with it. There's somebody on Twitter that I think you follow and I follow and a lot of people follow. An older gentleman. I'll just say an older bald gentleman that I made a post this one time, and then he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, so you know about that too? That they've infiltrated human institutions." And I'm like,
"Yeah."
I'm like, "Do you?" I was like, "I'm just spitballing." It's weird. It's weird, like the Men in Black, right? Like those aren't. Now I'm like, those aren't FBI agents. They're not.
No. There's something else going on. Yeah,
100%. Like, and they're like almost like a poltergeist, sort of. It's very strange.
I want to ask you about Mockingbird and misinformation and UFO Twitter, because you and I are like in the midst of it. I try to stay away for the most part, but as a media analyst, because that's what I studied, I have to keep an eye out and I have to see how everybody engages with the rest And something that I found very prevalent there is that there is, like, I don't know if it's by design, this war that seems to be going on. You recently mentioned Amy Eskridge and all that case. Um, do you think that it could be on purpose? Do you think that maybe some of the people that we talk to on the regular might be under their own agenda and they're just not telling us? What do you think is going on there? Because um, I don't know. It gets really dark, and when it comes to UFO Twitter, and it gets really confrontational and doxing and harassing and all that shit. Where do you think that comes from? Do you think it's organic, or do you think somebody's like causing it?
Oh, I think somebody's causing it. Well, and of course, you're going to have instances of the organic where people just act a fool, or curse at you for having an idea that's different than theirs. I won't say any names. I'm sure people know exactly what I'm referencing there. It's like, oh my God forbid I have a theory different than your theory. Oh, screw you. I'm calling the FBI. Like just all this weird stuff that goes on. The social media sphere is absolutely infiltrated. And there are things that I know that are just they're not good. I'll say this: it's like my DMs are open. I'm very visible. Pay very, very close attention to who I'm interacting with and who you never see me talking about. That should tell you a lot. I want to stay away from the dramatics, right? But I do see what you're talking about, though, that there seems to be like a concerted effort by certain people to not just like harass, but to like vilify and demolish. Like if they could get you fired from your job, they would. I'm like, when someone goes to that length and puts in that kind of effort, that makes me very suspicious, and it makes me wonder if they're being paid to do it. Because why would you ever go that far with someone that has like a different opinion than yours? And yeah, I think some of it is very manufactured as a means of distracting people, because it's like, oh, do I make the post about this case from the 70s or this recent sighting, or oh no, hold on, I can't do that because I have to talk about like the latest like so-and-so sock puppet extravaganza saga. Like it's a massive distraction and people get sucked into it very quickly
and very easily.
It's my best advice is stay away from that, especially with the new algorithm too. It does not like when people fight, and it doesn't like when you use foul language. It doesn't like when you attack another person's viewpoint. Like you will pay for it. Your visibility will go down because of that. Like I was reading, I had somebody send this to me, and like I was like, all right, I got to check this out. Like, what's the story here? My reach this week hasn't been that great for whatever reason. And I've been on fire for like the last month. I'm like, oh my God, it's like every post I'm getting like at least 100 likes. That's like the minimum. And then this week, 24, 50. But apparently they flipped some switch and then they're flipping it back on. So be careful who you befriend. Treat people respectfully. Like this is why I treat everybody nicely, because unless they're crossing me or really doing something that I feel like I have to like stand up and publicly say, hey, look, this is wrong. You can't do this. Like, I'm just not going to engage. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to be like, oh, dude, you suck. I'm going to turn you into a meme now. I don't have time. I don't have the energy. Yeah. I'm too old for it. But it's sadly, I really believe, especially the stuff that's the most distracting, I feel like is being manufactured from somewhere. And now, does that mean that the items being discussed are all fake and false? No, not necessarily. No. But that's part of that's the chain. That's the factory.
Yeah.
They do it on purpose to keep people's heads jumbled up, upset. And what are you going to do when you're confused and angry? You're not going to function at your best. And that's what they want. They don't want you looking up. They don't want you reading the literature. They don't want you going on podcasts. They don't want you doing any of those things. They want you to curse. They want you to be angry. They want you to talk shit, and they want you to block. Period.
Yeah, man. I wanted to ask you about a set of spaces that you've done with Astral, because I really enjoyed a lot of them. These are like occasionally you get into the remote viewing sessions, or you also do others with Astral too, but not necessarily on the Thursday remote viewing day. I wanted to ask you about that because there is clearly a correlation between whatever the phenomenon is in UFOs and consciousness and psionic abilities, if you want to call them that. But for me, it's like extrasensory perception abilities, essentially. For me, it feels like that could be one of the biggest secrets that they're trying to keep from people, that we're capable of stuff that seems science fiction-y, but it's not really. It's like a biological process. What is your take on that, though? Because you've been part of those and you've been talking about that for a while too. So what's your take on that?
Well, I guess we'll start with consciousness as like your basic foundational idea in this conversation. I think there is a major aspect of it that's non-local, that comes from outside of the brain. And the reason I believe that is because if you look at all of these strange, and a lot of times uncontrolled situations that human beings experience, like precognition is a good one, telepathy, all of those, it is, to me at least, representative of a data stream that we are hooked up to that is outside of time and space. So if it's outside of time and space, where's our brain? Time and space, right? So it's like it's coming from outside. I always look at it as, I actually did like an artistic rendition of it recently, where it's like you have, imagine like a snow globe. Or we'll actually, you know what, we'll use this skull right here. This glass skull is our reality. It's our universe, okay? And we're all inside of this, but we're bouncing around the sides. We can't get out. We're inside the matrix. But out here is consciousness. And I always picture it almost as like a cloud. And it's shooting like lightning down into here. And each one of those little bzz, bzz, bzz is a conscious entity. Well, what makes that really interesting is that is outside of time and space. So we literally have a connection to something that is outside of regular three-dimensional reality. It's the same idea as if you were standing at the base of a mountain. And you're about to start climbing, okay? And you look around and you can see the forest, right? Like, but the horizon's not going to be too far. I'm at the top. I look down, I can see you, and I can see the next 10 towns over. Consciousness is at the top of the mountain, and we're at the bottom. But there's a link, and sometimes we can get information from that link. And I think that explains, like, all you need is non-local consciousness, and it literally explains every telekinetic ability that you could possibly imagine. It's like, I look at all of those as a side effect of a non-local field of consciousness. It makes sense. And then how this connects to NHI really is where it gets tricky, but it's fun to speculate. It's like, well, maybe they are like hacking into that in a way. It's like they live inside of perception. Or perhaps they are also consciousness nodes that have almost like evolved differently than we did. Like, we're in biological bodies, but maybe they evolved in a way where they built themselves bodies. And now they are going out and trying to learn about biology. And there is a link. And like McGonagall and all of these famous remote viewers that have had these very strange encounters with non-human intelligence while they're remote viewing, right there, that tells me that like they're almost existing in some like weird like in between substrate, right? It's like, okay, if I sit here and I try to remote view, you know, my neighbor's house, right? Well, if I look out the window right now, I see my neighbor's house. I go to remote view it. I'm sitting here, I'm doing my thing. But the house is surrounded by 7-foot humanoids. It's like they live in like a shadow realm of some kind where but they're also able to come here. They have this weird ability to, like, we can go in 360 up, down, left, right, but they can go in. And that's why that, like, they whoever they are, at least some of them, they seem to be like masters of location and being able to be wherever they want to be, whenever they want to be, and inertia doesn't matter. And it's just so it's like breathtaking. Like, it's like, well, is that a place? Is it a wavelength? Like, what is it? And I think people need to wake up to the fact that there is plenty of data that shows remote viewing is absolutely real. Like, I don't even sit here like, oh, I think it might be real. It is real, okay? Like, it is. And we should be using it more. And I think that's one of the reasons why the scientific community poo-poos it so much, is because they can't stop it. Astro brought this up. And I thought it was such a brilliant point, because I had come to the same conclusion too. While, like, it was the same day, like, I was thinking about this, and then he and I went on Dale's podcast, and he believes that they want everyone to think that it's nonsense because it is such a powerful weapon and an ability. They don't want us knowing how to do it because they have nothing that can block it. And it's there. Yep. It's definitely there. And the NHI are aware of it. And they're able, on some weird level, to see when we're doing it. It's like they're in their weird, like, dimensional bubble. Say they're on the moon or something, doing whatever it is that they're doing. And I go and I remote view the moon and I see them. And then they turn around and they're like, what are you doing here? It's like, well, they're there, but they're not there. Like, they're not there to my eyes, but they're there to my mind's eye. So that makes me... The one thing that I think of is, like, the brain is a filter, and that's a real thing. You mentioned Jeffrey Mishlove earlier, and his submission for the Bigelow Institute contest. I actually have. I can't really see it here, but behind me I have. They sent me all the hardcover copies. Like, I have the whole set of all of the winning essays.
The red ones, right?
Yeah. Yep, they were kind enough to send that out to me, and I was really, really grateful for that. And he, in his essay, talked about filtration theory, this idea that, like, the brain filters reality essentially to make it suitable for biological existence for us, which is genius. First of all, it's like, how did that happen naturally? That's, like, really amazing if you think about it, aside from all of the other things that are amazing, like where the moon is in comparison to the earth and the sun. It just goes on and on and on. And it almost looks like it was designed. Like, it's very strange. I don't mean to sound religious, but, like, it does. It really does. It looks like creative design. It's insane. And he talks about the brain acting as a filter where, like, because of what it's doing, that's why I can't see them, like, with my waking eyes, but I can see them with my consciousness because my consciousness is unfiltered. So it's like there's all of these other layers, all of these other substrates, and I almost look at reality now, and I used to think of the universe as, like, just like a giant bubble, but now I almost feel like it's like a messy blanket where it's like all of these different folds and curves, and you can get, like, lost in it. And it's like this big, like, giant ball of rubber bands. Like, it's really strange. And time, I almost look at it like a location, like a plate. Like, instead of just past, present, future, I sort of look at time now as, like, a circular surface where you can kind of bounce around, and it's no different than the way I move around in, like, regular life. It's like it's its own location in a weird way.
like the way that we understand going from point A to point B. Time may function the same way, but instead of it being that you're moving within matter, you're moving within changes in matter, which sounds nuts. It's very hard to even like describe properly, but I don't think I think time is something a little bit more complex than what we give it credit for. But yeah,
I wanted to ask you about the precognition. And it's one of the last questions though, because I don't know if you remember last year I released a piece about an alleged unclassified setting where they talked about this incoming event and all that stuff, right? And now the 3i Atlas stuff is coming out right now, and there's a lot of remote viewers that are all over the place. They say different things, all of them. It seems to be a comment for now, but do you think that these remote viewers and people who would like to make predictions, do you think it affects the overall movement when they do that? And if it does, how so? Because it's happened forever. Like there's always been predictions, and almost never do they come to fruition, but sometimes they do. So what do you think about that? Do you think it hurts the movement? Do you think it's okay to do them? What do you think about it?
I think as long as everybody stays grounded in what they know and understand and how they feel, that you can observe someone putting out that kind of work without it having to like bring shame or anything to the topic. They, like, let's be honest, I am sure there's some people that go on YouTube and they pretend to remote view something. They're not really even doing it probably, and they're like, oh dude, I saw like icicle beings and all that weird stuff. But if you have anybody that has any ounce of credibility, where they have like a track record, I feel like they should get their flowers for that though too, because if you really think about it, even if you do a simple remote viewing with like a double blind, like what Astral does on Thursdays, right? That could be anything. And when I say anything, it could be a picture of anything. Think about the quintillion combinations that could be, probably more, right? Like it could be a white paper with a red dot, but then it could be 2 red dots, or it could be 3. And that's just talking about red dots. Like there's a Googleplex, like an unimaginably large number of things that it could be. And yet week after week after week after week, we see people that get characteristics out of it. I even had instances where Astral always statistically talked about there being like strong beginner's luck. And I had that happen for like 3 straight weeks. I had some really, really good results. And then that 4th week, I, felt high and mighty and bombed completely. And it's like exactly what he statistically expected. He had seen the pattern. So we obviously have some sort of ability there. Now, a lot of people, we'll hear this a lot, like, oh, humans create reality and consciousness creates reality and matter. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure if it does, right? Because when you hear that, like the first thing you think is, well, if that's the case, then how come I can't just like conjure an object, right? Like obviously it's probably a little bit more complex than that. Now, when you have all of these different conscious nodes in agreement with one another, then things might get a little interesting. Because I've been wanting to do an experiment that involves remote viewing different points in time in history. Just like when they had the remote viewing that went to look at Mars like 1 million years ago, and they saw like a civilization and hibernation pods and all of these things that were very strange. I want to do that type. I want to like literally write down different points in history on different planets and different places, and have somebody scramble them up and then have people remote view them and see what happens. Because it's like the chances of them getting anything is supposed to be like really, really tiny. So if they get this like really complex, detailed story there, that should tell you something.
Yeah.
Now, if we affect reality with consciousness in some weird way, you know, they say the universe like is consciousness at its foundation, and then we're part of that, then on some level, there should be an expectation of effect, where if you have that many minds in agreement on something, it seems to carry some sort of weight for whatever reason. Why that happens, I'm sure there's incredibly complicated math formulas that could be created behind that. Now, will it affect the comet, the object, whatever it is? You know, maybe, yeah, but maybe it's not enough. Maybe it's not powerful enough to do that. I don't know. You know, again, my rational side says it's a comet.
Yeah.
But then my curious side says, well, you know, we've had comets come by before. I remember seeing Hale-Bopp. It was beautiful. It was an amazing thing to see. And that's not the type of coverage it got. It was like, it's a comet. Here comes the comet. Oh, on this day you can see this time, like the headlines. And I guess, I mean, you know, it might just be a symptom of media changing and people being different now. But I find it really, really odd that they would put some of the stories out that they did. Like, it's an alien object on its way to Earth. Like, they wanted people to like believe that. And I take what Jeremy Corbell has been talking about, and it makes me wonder. He's like, oh, there's a big lie coming, that there's a ship coming and it's slowly moving towards Earth. And I'm like, okay, if they try to pull that, right, for whatever, and I don't even know why they would pull that, but I guess they have their reasons. Then this almost sort of feels like a precursor to that. Not that Atlas is that object, but that they want to get people thinking about that, and they're doing it through mass media. Why that is, why they would do that, I'd really have to sit and ponder. But I think if you get enough people together, though, and to concentrate on something that it can affect reality, because there's been experiments that have been done with muscle mass and things like that, like simple things that they were able to essentially increase their muscle mass as if they were doing push-ups, but they weren't doing any push-ups. They were imagining themselves in first person doing push-ups, which was, what was it? Dr. Joe Dispenza talked about that in his book, Becoming Supernatural, which is a really fascinating book. The other experiment briefly is this. I don't know if you've ever heard this term, but it's called an egregore. And it's like a thought form that's created by a group of people. Well, I'm like, why don't we try that? Like, I don't know if that's dangerous, but like, why don't we give it a shot? Why don't I get all these people that come into Astral's remote viewing spaces? And I'm like, well, let me look into this. And how about we all get together and let's try to make one of these things, but have it be like something that would have a positive outcome. It's like, let's try to create like an egregore that, you know, I don't know, positively affects UFO Twitter and I don't know, something, you know, something along those lines. People stop arguing so much or something.
And boom, who knows? Psyop anime was born. I'm kidding.
Oh man, let me tell you something. I absolutely love that. I'm such a big fan of those visuals. I deal with AI, obviously, for some of the visuals and stuff that I do. And like, one of the hardest things to do is continuity, especially doing video clips and stuff. I'm going to have to literally reach out to them and estimate and be like, listen, I'm not trying to steal any of your ideas or whatever. I have my own ideas, but what are you guys doing to be able to put like a scene and then another scene, and then have character? Like, I know some of the things like for character consistency and such, but I'm really curious like what their workflow is, so that I could achieve my own results doing something different. Like, I have my own ideas, and it's just amazing work. Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's like these new tools exist, and people should use them and be as creative as you want. There's no rules. You can do whatever you want with them. And as long as you're being ethical about it, I see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, agreed. All right. So we talked about a lot, dude. I hope we can do it again sometime though, because
I agree.
Maybe keep it going. Do
I want to
several
bring Digby
rounds.
with me next time.
Yeah, I'd like to talk
because
to
I
him
know he's
too.
down, and he really misses doing the podcasting and everything. He knew I was coming tonight, and like I could tell in his voice that he wishes that he could too. But he and I are going to be doing our thing soon. And of course, anytime I go on anybody else's show, I'm grateful. I'm thankful for that. It's an honor and a privilege, and you're always welcome on ours, of course, always.
Thank you. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, what you got going on, upcoming stuff you got, maybe?
So you can find me if you just put at Cortex 0 in Google. I'm sure I'm pretty near the top now, thank God, because nobody else has my name. I got lucky on that one. If you go on X, it's at Cortex_0. If you go on YouTube and just search Cortex 0, you will absolutely find me. And then if you put in Anomalous Pod, you'll find me in Digby. The next big project is the second installment of the Eyes of the Infiltrators series about the Greys. And then the other little project that I'm doing, which will be shorter, is about what we were talking about earlier. Why the amount of variety in humanoid encounters specifically? I found so many cool pictures that people have drawn, and they even had like professional sketch artists that help some of these people put together what they saw. And I want to explore that and be like, well, why are there so many? What's the real answer? And then after that, I think what I'll probably do, I would like to release at least a couple full pieces of music that I've been working on. I put out like a little teaser thing the other day that I did really quickly with some visuals, but I want to put like a couple full tracks out and you know, and see how they do. I know it's not UFO related, but it's music you could go looking for UFOs too, right? Like it's like it could be like your I'm going UFO hunting soundtrack. That's kind of what it's meant to be. But other than that, it's kind of wherever the cards land. I don't know where they're going to land yet, but hopefully I'll get my energy back and not feel so sick.
Same. Last question though. This comes from my friends at Living Life Consciously. I try to ask this question to every guest. What is your biggest hope for the future of humanity?
Wow. That we stop hurting each other. Really. Like the most simple terms, that we stop looking at each other like we're from like different species and different colors and clubs and nations, and we just look at each other like we're people, and that the first thing that will happen when you see another person is respect and love. Like no more war, no more fighting, no more hate. That's my hope for the future, is that we stop tearing each other and ourselves apart. We take care of each other. Like when you see a random person that you've never met before, you treat them like they're your family member. That's a human being. It's like a miracle. And you are that. So treat them the same way. Treat them like that. That's a very special being over there. That's a living being that has a whole story to tell, that has a whole life to live. They might have children. Treat them like they're your mother. Treat them like you've known them forever. That's my hope, really. It might be a long time from now, but I do think we have it in us to get there. I do.
Yeah, I think so too. That's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of this, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having me, man. I'm really happy we got to do this. It definitely made my day.
Yeah, man. Thanks. And you know what to do, guys. Like and subscribe. Follow Tom on every social media. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See you later, Tom. Thanks, man.
Take care, man. Have a great rest of your night.
Bye.